Most people spend their whole existence running after praise, molding themselves to be accepted, constantly adjusting to win approval. Yet the instant you stop living for external applause and turn that attention inward, life transforms. You no longer plead for permission to exist. You begin forging your own power. When you prioritize your inner world, your mind sharpens, your spirit settles, and your direction becomes unshakable. That is the birthplace of true leadership. Neglect yourself, and you'll always dance to the tune of other people's expectations. Claim ownership of who you are, and nothing outside you can shake your foundation. Strength of mind is not forged in noise, but in stillness. Soon, you'll see why self-focus is not selfishness, but survival. It's the switch that moves you from a passive passenger in life to the one steering the wheel. That's not just poetic language. It's a principle of achievement. The vast majority of people drift reactively. They're pulled like puppets by distraction, twisted by criticism, and carried off by the loud currents of the world. They hand control of their lives to circumstance, waiting endlessly for someone else to guide them, validate them, or give them permission to act. But there is another kind of person, rare and powerful, who makes a deliberate choice to look inward. They examine their own beliefs, choices, and habits. This is the person who begins to author their destiny instead of leaving it to chance. The moment you redirect your awareness back toward yourself, a strange clarity arises. You begin to notice the roles you've been playing just to keep others happy, the masks you wear to blend in. You finally glimpse the unfiltered version of yourself, the potential that has been buried under all that pretending. You start to see your patterns, how you react when stressed, the way you speak to yourself when no one's watching, how you either nurture or neglect your dreams. Seeing these truths grants you something very few ever hold: clarity. Clarity is the seed of control. Control is the foundation of personal power. When you begin to master your thoughts, your choices, and your emotional energy, the chaos around you no longer seeps inside. You stop internalizing everyone else's urgency. You stop firing back at every spark that flies your way. You begin moving with intention, not impulse. That is when your strength becomes visible, not just to others, but to yourself. Ancient wisdom affirms this. Proverbs 4:23 tells us to guard our heart with diligence, for everything we do flows from it. Your heart, your inner space, is the source from which your entire life flows. If that source is muddy, your world becomes messy. But if that space is clean, protected, and focused, your life displays order, direction, and stability. Florence Nightingale lived this truth. Born into wealth, she could have easily remained comfortable, simply attending society's dinners, marrying well, and staying quiet. Instead, she listened to the small voice inside rather than the loud expectations outside. That inward commitment gave her the courage to walk into war hospitals, endure resistance from bureaucrats, and ultimately transform medicine. If she had obeyed the noise of the world, the noise would have only grown louder. But by tuning in to her inner call, she brought healing where there had only been suffering. Now it's your turn. Your purpose is not waiting in the outside world. It must be unlocked from within. The people you admire, those who seem unshakable, didn't land there by accident. They identified what needed to grow, what needed to be removed, and what needed to be built within themselves. Then they acted quietly, consistently, relentlessly. Start paying attention to where your mental energy goes. Are you constantly checking what others are doing, reacting to every piece of news? Or are you deliberately shaping yourself each day? The world doesn't need another person trying to keep everyone happy. It needs you at your clearest, strongest, most grounded. Your power starts with where you aim your attention, and the moment you bring it home to yourself, you seize the wheel of your own life. This is not selfishness, it's strategy. A building cannot stand on a weak foundation, and your life is no different. People will accuse you of being self-centered when you step away from the crowd to repair yourself. Let them misinterpret. What they call selfish may actually be sacred, because a person who never tends to their inner life soon has nothing worthwhile to offer anyone. Society glorifies the hustle and worships exhaustion. People wear burnout like an achievement badge, but here is the truth. You cannot pour into others when your own cup is bone dry. When you are depleted, you don't make decisions from vision, you make them from fear. But when you invest in your spiritual, emotional, and mental health, you start living from overflow. Your relationships deepen. Your influence grows. Your energy becomes magnetic because your center becomes unshakable. The Apostle Paul said, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." That strength is not random. It is built over time like metal hardened by fire. Your resilience is forged by adversity, repetition, and conscious choice. Strength is not something you wait to feel. It's something you train into existence. You discipline your mind, you choose your responses, you resist the pull of distraction. Focus becomes a weapon in your hand. George Washington Carver was not born into advantage. He was born into slavery. He had every excuse to stay bitter, every reason to give up. But he didn't. He studied, he experimented, he innovated. He became a force in agriculture not because doors were open for him, but because he carved his own path. He preserved his attention for creation, not complaint. And because of that, the world had to notice. You face the same choice daily. Scatter your energy in 100 directions or direct it towards strengthening the one person who has the power to influence everything, you. Training your body is not just physical work. It's training your will. Reading is not just consuming information. It's expanding your inner world. Saying no to what drains you is saying yes to what builds you. Focus is not a cage. It's a channel for your power. Do not think this road is free of resistance. Distractions will be loud. Critics will sneer. Guilt will whisper. But greatness requires separation before elevation. You cannot rise while tangled up with everyone and everything. Healthy boundaries are not walls of isolation. They are the fences that protect your growth. Life is like a field. You either plant seeds of distraction or seeds of destiny. Your harvest tomorrow depends on the choices you make today. Protect your mind like fertile soil. Water it with purpose. Stop trying to repair everything outside of you. The moment you concentrate on what lies within, you become unstoppable. Focus is not a limitation. It multiplies your results. Use it wisely and let it lead you toward the life you were designed to live. Most people waste years aiming all their effort outward, trying to win arguments, sway opinions, and gain acceptance. They measure their worth by applause, losing priceless energy chasing perceptions that were never theirs to control. But here is the liberating truth. The only person you are capable of truly changing is yourself. Real transformation does not start out there. It starts with mastery of self. Picture yourself in the middle of a storm. Wind howls, rain pounds, thunder shakes the sky. You cannot silence the clouds, but you can build a vessel that carries you through them. That vessel is your mind, built from focus, discipline, and inner steadiness. The outer world will always contain chaos, but you can conquer the storm within. Romans 12:2 gives the blueprint: be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The world tells you to react, retaliate, add to the noise, but transformation requires daily renewal, intentional and consistent. Clarity doesn't arrive by accident. It is carved into being. Harriet Tubman exemplified this mastery. She didn't beg for permission or wait for applause. She listened inward, trusted the divine nudges more than public opinion, and because she mastered herself, her fear, her focus, her faith, she led countless others to freedom. She braved danger with a spirit trained in silence. That is the kind of leader you must become, not one desperate for attention, but one whose quiet fire lights the way for others. The battle is not really against the world. It is against the inner noise, the self-doubt, the hunger for constant praise. Those are chains, and they must be broken. Distraction invites you to scroll instead of study. Doubt urges you to quit before you start. Validation asks you to shrink until you're acceptable. Focus whispers another way. Turn inward, silence the world, and strengthen the one thing you can control: yourself. When you master that, you carry yourself differently. You don't need to be the loudest voice. Your presence alone calms the room. You no longer chase peace, you bring it. You don't search for clarity, you radiate it. This is the power of focus. It gives you dominion not over others, but over the only battleground that matters: your mind. From that dominion flows influence, not through noise, but through alignment. Stop spending your life trying to fix what was never yours to fix. Pull back your energy from arguments, comparisons, and chaos and pour it into building yourself. Observe your habits. Rewrite your thoughts. Replace the limiting beliefs you've been carrying. The highest version of you isn't hidden somewhere outside. It is already inside you, waiting to be disciplined and directed. Every quiet decision, the early wake up, the choice to study instead of scroll, the decision to train your body or feed your mind is a vote for the person you are becoming. Discipline is not punishment, it's permission. It's the passport to your future. The structure you're building may be invisible now, but one day it will stand tall and you will be unshakable. Comfort whispers that you can rest now, skip today, try later, but comfort is expensive. Its price is regret. Build with intention. When you're tempted to take the easy way out, remember, you are not building for today, but for the person you will be years from now. Booker T. Washington knew this. Born enslaved, he had nothing but willpower. He walked miles just to sit in a classroom. He worked to pay for his own schooling. He became a teacher when society said he shouldn't. He built strength in silence and laid brick upon brick until his life became a monument to perseverance. He didn't wait for ideal conditions. He used the conditions he had. You don't need perfect timing, the perfect mentor, or perfect equipment. You need a decision, one step, and then another. Strength is not built in applause. It's built when no one sees you refusing to quit. Roots grow deep where eyes cannot see, and so will you. Your effort is not wasted. When the storms of life arrive, and they will, you will stand firm, not because of luck, but because you prepared. Every disciplined act is a declaration that you will not be moved, that you will be steady, that you love your future more than your comfort. So choose the difficult road, the quiet grind, the early mornings. That's where transformation is hiding. That's where greatness begins. And when storms beat against you, your life will stand because you built it correctly. Silence is not emptiness. It is full of answers, but you will never hear them if you keep drowning yourself in noise. We live in a culture terrified of stillness. People avoid silence because it forces them to face their unhealed wounds, their regrets, their unlived dreams. But if you dare to sit with yourself in stillness, you will hear something priceless truth. The greatest minds are not created in chaos, but in solitude. It is in the quiet that your inner storm settles. The world will insist that progress requires constant motion, but real elevation starts when you pause, not to escape, but to listen. Isaiah 30:15 reminds us, in quietness and confidence shall be your strength. It does not say speed. It does not say noise. Quietness. When you sit alone, truly alone, you meet yourself as you really are. That moment may feel uncomfortable, but it is where growth is born. Your fears rise, your insecurities echo, but so do your vision and your purpose. Silence holds up a mirror, and if you are willing to look, you'll see the person you are meant to become. Nikola Tesla understood this deeply. While others chased crowds, he embraced solitude. He would vanish for hours, even days, building entire worlds inside his imagination. He didn't just design inventions, he saw them fully before they existed. His isolation was not weakness, it was his superpower. He discovered what few ever do. Silence is a portal to genius. But you don't have to be an inventor to use this power. You only need courage to turn off the noise, put the phone down, close the door, and meet yourself. And when you do, trust what you hear. We live in an age that celebrates business, a calendar filled with meetings, an inbox overflowing with messages. But that is not strength, that is survival. And you were made for more than survival. Leaders must retreat before they advance. They must hear before they speak. They must know themselves before they can guide anyone else. Create a habit, even 5 minutes a day, to sit with yourself and ask hard questions. What am I avoiding? What am I chasing? Who am I becoming? The stronger your relationship with yourself, the less you need validation from the world. You stop begging for applause. You stop breaking yourself to win approval. You become anchored, not in noise, but in knowing. And that is freedom. Ecclesiastes teaches that every phase of life has its appointed hour and purpose beneath the sky, and that truth includes the unique season in which you are growing, discovering purpose, and stepping into breakthroughs. Transformation does not happen overnight any more than fruit springs from the soil the day after a seed is set. There is a period for clearing the field, a stretch of darkness, a time of slow upward push, and only after that comes the unfolding. Far too many people leak their growth energy by watching the lives of others. They scroll endlessly, nurse envy, feel diminished, and convince themselves they are late to a contest that was never really a race. You are not built that way. You know that greatness is not instant. It is steeped, nurtured, cultivated in quiet places through steady routines, and by showing up when no one else applauds. Every obstacle you encountered wasn't a postponement, but a lesson. Every unintended rote taught you something. Every perceived failure deepened your foundations. Those deeper roots will one day support what you build. Without them, any triumph would lack substance and be easily toppled, because you didn't merely accelerate your rise. You made it enduring by growing downward as much as upward. So remain settled. Stop trying to skip steps or transplant your progress to mirror someone else's timeline. Tend to your own plan. Nourish your dream with truth. Shield it from the seeds of doubt. Illuminate it with hope, consistent acts, and faith in the process, for the process is not meant to punish you. It is preparing you. When you place attention on your own development, not from vanity, but from commitment, you begin to register genuine forward movement. It may not always be spectacular or unmistakable, yet it is authentic. Day after day, you ascend. Inch by inch, you refine. The young shoot does not argue with the composition of the earth. It simply pushes upward. So must you. Then, one morning, with no drum roll, you will realize you have arrived, not because you were chasing recognition, but because you trusted the work, remained when others abandoned the task, and kept believing when circumstances tested you. That kind of flourishing endures and multiplies. You are not late. You are emerging in the right season, aligned with a plan larger than your timetable. Your role now is to guard your plot, irrigate your inner life with disciplined habits, shelter your ambitions from comparison, and believe that what you cannot yet see is unfolding exactly as needed. When you center on your own craft, you do more than grow. You come into full bloom. Strength is born the moment you elect to stop waiting and begin acting. Society trains us to expect impeccable timing, as if success hinges on celestial alignments, sudden inspiration, or somebody else's approval. In reality, perfection is a myth, and waiting often becomes a trap. There will never be a flawless disposition, day, or arrangement. Those who ultimately succeed are rarely those who feel fully ready. They are the ones who proceed despite uncertainty. They don't expect clarity to fall from the sky. They manufacture it through motion. Many people stall their destiny not from a lack of gifts, but from a failure to initiate. They postpone choices, delay momentum, and bargain with themselves in the name of preparation. But a mind trained to act, especially when comfort is absent, becomes formidable. It stops seeking permission. Scripture and wisdom literature underscore this. The one who craves without work gains little, while the person who applies themselves sees abundance. Wishing without action is a dream left to rot into regret. Diligent effort, however, delivers results and amplifies what fleeting motivation promises. You cannot harden your resolve by ruminating on it. You do so by ordering yourself to move even when each step feels difficult, particularly when it does. How do you cultivate that posture? By shaping your reflexes, by refusing to wait for energy to appear and instead creating it through consistent, small acts of discipline. Narrow your choices and commit to a single, clear direction. Rise at the hour you committed to rising. Engage with your responsibilities whether inspiration greets you or not. Stop bargaining with lethargy. Lead yourself with the same resolve a commander gives an army. History shows what determination in the absence of comfort can produce. Consider the woman who persistently applied to medical schools despite repeated rejections, ridicule, and the constant assertion that her calling did not belong to her gender. She refused to allow those external judgments to silence the inner conviction that her work mattered. She prepared anew, confronted obstacles, and in doing so became the first woman in the nation to hold a medical degree, paving an avenue for countless others. Her courage was not the result of daily fearlessness. It sprang from a conviction that the mission outweighed how she felt each morning. That is the hallmark of resolute minds. They do not let feelings dictate action. They let purpose do so. Movement begets momentum. Action draws energy into your life. Stagnation depletes it. So stop rationalizing delay. There is no immaculate moment down the road, only the present, potent when met with intention. Your future will not be sparked by motivation alone. It waits for you to set your foot and start. Command yourself. Take the lead. Act. Because resilience does not arrive with flawless timing. It emerges when your discipline drowns out your doubts. Your most powerful mental posture begins the instant you begin. Establish standards that will not shrink to suit convenience. The world is littered with shortcuts and easy exits, and every one of them is a stealthy trap. Once you start lowering your benchmark to accommodate comfort, you begin a slow negotiation with mediocrity. Mediocrity, once let in, seldom leaves quietly. It gradually consumes ambition. The strength of your mindset is tied to the boundary you draw and how fiercely you defend it. A tepid commitment cannot sculpt a sharp intellect. The standards you keep in solitude become the evidence you display publicly. The gravest hazard to achievement is not failure, but compromise. That quiet voice that whispers, just this once, or no one will notice, but you will notice. Your inner integrity will erode. One skipped promise becomes a pattern. One tiny concession becomes the habit that reshapes your identity. A foundational teaching encourages wholehearted labor, not for applause, but for purpose. Show up with everything you have, even when no one observes, because you are accountable. Solid minds are not formed by lowering the bar to match moods. They are forged by elevating the bar and meeting it every day, especially on difficult, dull, or tempting days. Strength comes from persistence when the task is monotonous, loyalty when reward is absent, and forward motion when others stop. Discipline is not synonymous with motivation. It is alignment. Your daily actions must mirror the future you claim. Look to those who refuse to be defined by circumstance. A woman born into bondage, denied schooling, and treated as less than human, insisted upon education and speech, using courts, pulpits, and public gatherings to press for justice. She did not wait for permission. She set her own standard and refused to diminish. Her journey was arduous and non-linear, but her standards stayed firm, and generations benefited because she chose to persist. Raise a benchmark so commanding it unsettles your comfort zone, one that requires your best work even in private and holds you accountable when no one else watches. Your future does not need more excuses. It requires structure, rooted values, and non-negotiables. Maintain the line. When others slacken, remain precise. When people drift, remain anchored. If the world urges you to lower your expectation, lift it instead, because those who refuse to contract are the ones who end up leading movements. If you remain faithful to the standard, even when the payoff is invisible, you will find yourself tall when trials come. Excellence is not primarily a public achievement. It is built in quiet, brick by brick, choice by choice. Decide now who you are becoming, and then synchronize your daily labor to that decision. Self-direction becomes mental power when you begin to speak to yourself like a leader. Your life's trajectory is shaped by the tone of your inner conversation. Many people whisper doubt, complaint, and fear to themselves, then wonder why their life feels small, chaotic, or powerless. But if you switch from fear, speak to faith, speak, everything shifts. You converse with yourself more than anyone else does. Your words sculpt your thinking governs your actions, and your actions produce your future. That is why victim phrases such as, "I can't," "I always fail," or "I'm not enough" are not mere thoughts. They are proclamations that harden into outcomes. Another passage tells us that when someone speaks to a mountain without doubt, that declaration has power. Faith is not passive belief, it is vocalized intent. You must name your direction, command your focus, and declare your resolve. Self-focus moves beyond mere awareness to articulate commitment. Start each morning not by asking what you feel like doing, but by affirming who you are and where you're headed. Call forth discipline into your body and vision into your spirit. Let your internal narrative be strategic. Many change makers stood in rooms where they had no invitation, yet they chose to speak anyway, investigating injustice, writing bravely, and refusing to silence themselves. Their words shifted laws, altered public conscience, and altered the course of history. But before they spoke to the world, they had to first speak the truth to themselves. So what language do you use in private? Are your words strengthening you or gnawing at your confidence? Are you rehearsing problems or declaring purpose? Your inner dialogue is either a prison or a liberating key. Train your voice to affirm the person you are becoming, not the one you were. Address yourself with firmness and compassion, clarity and vision. Treat thoughts as soldiers that must be marshaled, not guests that wander unchecked. Persistence in consistent declaration produces alignment. Your spirit begins to cooperate, your body follows, choices fall into place, and action streams from affirmation. Speak toward excellence, courage, and integrity. Name your aims and then step into them, because your voice is not only for others but for you. It steers focus, adjusts belief, and amplifies destiny. Use it to elevate your posture and begin to sound like the champion you are meant to be. Part of focusing on yourself includes learning to forgive yourself. This is not softness, it is strategic wisdom. If you remain tethered to the past, you will never advance toward the future you were meant to craft. Many are stalled, not for lack of skill, but because they are entangled in yesterday's mistakes. Shame is not merely a memory that haunts, it is an anchor that freezes potential. Regret replays errors and deepens the burden with each replay. But you are defined not by an earlier misstep, you are defined by your next choice. The quicker you accept that truth, the lighter your mind becomes. Leadership cannot be effective while dragging chains. You must break them. Sacred writings reassure us that if we admit our wrongs and seek restoration, forgiveness is available, not as a distant possibility, but as a promise. Grace is not something you earn, it is something you receive, and once embraced it empowers rather than perpetuates guilt. Pardoning yourself does not mean erasing memory, it means ceasing to punish yourself for it. It releases you from the habit of replaying failure and from the false belief that you are diminished because of past decisions. The strongest minds are not those who never stumbled, but those who refuse to perpetually live inside the fall. They learn and evolve. You cannot erect a future atop yesterday's ruins. Self-forgiveness is not optional, it is foundational. Think about the founder of a major humanitarian organization who, when reminded of past grievances, elected to stop reliving injuries and instead continued her mission. She refused to allow criticism to steer her off course, and through steadfastness, she changed the world. Imagine if she had surrendered to shame or answered hurt with silence, her legacy would have been lost. Do not keep a tally of your failures as if they were trophies. Stop letting your worst moment chain you. You are not defined by what you did then, you are defined by what you do next. That is where your authority lies. Forgive, make amends where necessary, learn the lesson, and move forward. There is no growth in perpetual guilt, only stasis. A mind that is truly focused does not beg for certainty, it builds it. Do not drift aimlessly waiting for life to reveal your path. Choose a direction and commit to it fully. Absent vision, you become a responder to the loudest voice instead of a leader of your story. Clarity is internal. It is a picture you hold that organizes your days. Once that internal image is specific, your energy is directed, your habits align, and your decisions are made with confidence because they filter through a clear destination. Make your vision plain so that it can propel movement. You don't need another dose of motivation. You need a sharper description of where you are going. Formulating vision is not passive. It is a deliberate act. Ask the practical questions. What am I trying to build? Who am I becoming? What does success look like for me? Give your dream details. Sketch it in color. Write it and read it daily until it becomes a compass for your choices. Examples from history show the force of clarity. A woman who began with almost nothing and a bold dream to educate girls in an era that dismissed their needs created a school that became the seat of a university. She saw what others did not yet perceive and held to that picture until it was realized. Her clarity produced progress. People who build do not follow trends, they follow a defined vision. The clearer your aim, the fewer temptations you will find in detours. When vision is plain, time reorganizes itself around it, your habits bend toward it, your priorities gain weight, decisions become easier. The mind cannot pursue a blur, it needs form. So write the plan, make it visible, not just in a notebook, but in your schedule, conversations, and daily disciplines. Speak it, live it, structure your life around it. Clarity is not a discovery, it is a decision. When you make it, your internal noise quiets and your actions sprint toward something real. As your inner focus becomes sharper, you detach from outcomes beyond your control. Life contains unpredictable factors, shifting timelines, delayed outcomes, and people who disappoint. If your peace hinges on external results, you become captive to uncertainty. But when your peace is rooted in preparation, strength is available in the storm. You cannot command the weather, but you can build a vessel that sails through it. Many waste energy trying to forecast or manipulate what will happen. Instead, peace is cultivated through steady action. Focus on the things you control: effort, discipline, skill, development. Release what you cannot. The more you steward your responsibilities well, the less you fear the uncontrollable. Consider someone who was born unable to see or hear and who, despite overwhelming limitations, refused to resign herself to those circumstances. She trained, read, wrote, and practiced with dogged consistency. Her life shows that perfection is not required to create a legacy. Only focus faith and preparation. Do not obsess over predicting when your breakthrough will arrive. Instead, prepare with excellence. Your readiness is your duty. When you show up fully prepared, recognition follows, not because you chased it, but because you became too capable to ignore. Practice grounding yourself in the present when the future looks uncertain. Anchor in today's work. Prepare as if the opportunity already belongs to you. Let your deeds speak louder than your anxieties. Let your work ethic drown out doubt. Detach from expectation and cling to the process, and you will find calm replacing panic and strength supplanting stress. The storm will arrive, but if your ship is seaworthy, you will not only survive, you will navigate. Discipline multiplies when you shape your environment. It does not begin with a calendar, it begins with your space, because external order tends to produce internal clarity. If your surroundings are noisy, cluttered, or chaotic, expect your thoughts to reflect that. Conversely, when you take authority over your space, you take authority over your focus. There is an intimate link between an orderly environment and a sharp mind. A tidy desk encourages clearer decisions. A structured schedule channels energy. As a guiding principle advises, arrange things decently and in order. This counsel is practical. Orderless living drains your cognitive resources. Start small, clear clutter, assign places for items, keep only what fuels your mission. Then rank your tasks by how they align with your purpose and protect time for deep work. Greatness is scheduled, not stumbled upon. Guard your mornings and protect your rest. Order liberates by reducing decision fatigue and freeing your attention for creative work. Many champions were not born in optimal circumstances, but they cultivated order and routine that enabled extraordinary results. A young athlete who faced health challenges and physical setbacks structured her recovery and practice with such discipline that she rose to become a world-class performer. She won not by talent alone, but by meticulous preparation. That is what readiness gives you: calm and opportunity. You may not manage every external condition, but you can shape the environment where discipline breathes. Build a space that reminds you of your mission and where effort is spent executing plans rather than rummaging for lost items or battling distractions. Create rituals that reconstruct your identity. Intentional repetition shapes character. People do not transform by changing their aspirations alone. They transform through repetitive acts that solidify into habit. Rituals are declarations of identity. Waking early, opening a book, pausing to reflect. These are not incidental acts, but statements. This is who I am becoming. Small repeated actions weave together to form an identity. You reap what you plant. Consistent sowing of effort yields harvest. Insignificant steps repeated over time become the staircase leading to your highest self. Rituals do not need drama. They require constancy. A founder who started with modest means built a global movement by embedding learning and service into daily routines that over time multiplied impact. Your task is to compose a daily pattern that supports who you are becoming. Rise with purpose, read to sharpen thought, reflect to learn, and let these practices pull your dreams from the clouds into soil. When rituals are protected, even your worst day nudges you forward. You do not have to be flawless. You must be faithful to the repetition that constructs identity. As you turn inward, you need less external validation. That is not arrogance, it is alignment. When you know your worth from inside, you stop bargaining for approval in spaces that cannot recognize the fullness of who you are. Many dim their light to make others comfortable. They mute themselves. You were not made to fit in, you were made to change the room. Seeking external approval distracts from potential. When you begin to self-validate, criticism hurts less and applause matters less. You walk with quiet certainty. This inner conviction does not mean rejecting constructive feedback. It means filtering it through identity rather than insecurity. Begin each day by reminding yourself of your intrinsic value, not tied to accolades, but grounded in essence. Speak truth to yourself before external voices attempt to define you. Affirm your worth, uphold convictions, and enter rooms as someone who has already chosen themselves. Do not shrink or barter your depth for acceptance. You were not created to echo, you were created to shape. When validation arrives from within, the world only affirms what is already true. Focusing on yourself is not a temporary experiment. It is a lifelong practice. It is not something you do only when driven. It is a steady way of life. Once you cease the practice, drift begins. The mind, like a muscle, weakens without training and becomes vulnerable to distraction. That's why focus must be on daily. Discipline is not punishment, it is defense. It preserves your purpose from erosion. A timeless truth reminds us that discipline rarely feels pleasant at the moment, but it produces a harvest of peace and righteousness in time. Harvests are not immediate. They are the reward of those who persevere, who keep building when progress seems invisible, who sharpen while others sleep. You are not simply chasing personal success, you are shaping a legacy.